Yes. Mr. Kanyangela, you are still on the oath?
Yes, my lord.
Mr. Kanyangela, just relating to the issue you raised about Mr. Shangala and his attempt, or alleged attempt, to bribe a member of the AR. That, as I understand it, is affirmative repositioning. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's in
Sorry, I didn't hear the question, Mr.
Oh,
Smith.
sorry, ma'am.
Yes.
I was saying, Mr. Kanyangela, that you raised the question of Mr. Shangala allegedly attempting to bribe a member of the affirmative repositioning movement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, I take it you have a statement from whoever it is to make that allegation against Mr. Shangala.
Yes, the initiative came from him.
From whom?
From Mr. Shangala.
No, Mr. Kanyangela, we're going to be here. I want to finish as quickly as possible. The question I asked is, do you have a statement from a person who made that allegation against Mr. Shangala?
Yes, the statements are on the case file.
Statements?
Yes.
Okay. When were the statements made?
I don't know the exact date, but it's a I can also now recall when that case was opened. If it is not towards the end of last year, it was during the beginning of this year.
Okay. Now, who investigated it? Was it the ACC or was it the police?
The case is still with the ACC.
Okay. Now, in regard to that case, a serious allegation is made against Mr. Shangala.
Yes.
Did you ask him for his response to those allegations?
No, I did not ask him.
Yes. Mr. Kanyangela, I'm going to suggest to you that that has been the practice you have followed. Whenever there is an allegation against one of the accused or persons whom you think are involved in wrongdoing, you simply do not ask for a different version.
That is a different case that is under investigation. So the investigator could approach him if he wants him to ask to answer to the allegations.
You see, it's not the investigator who brought it to this court, it's you.
Yes.
Now, I just want you, for the record, because it's irrelevant, as you rightly say, to this case, that effectively what had happened is that Mr. Tamsin Hatukulipi has somebody who assists him in his business, and that person is going to form some form of political protest. And Mr. Shangala advised against that. That was all of Mr. Shangala's involvement. Had you or the persons to whom those allegations were made troubled yourselves to get Mr. Shangala's version, that's what you would have got. Are you in a position to dispute that?
I did not do that.
In any case, we know that whatever it is unrelated to the case that Mr. Shangala is facing in this court. Is that correct?
I don't agree to that.
Okay. You know, Mr. Kanyangela, good witnesses make the necessary concessions. You agreed earlier that that case has nothing to do with this case. 2 minutes ago, that was your point. It's got nothing to do with this case. But now when I put the proposition to you, you say, I don't agree.
But I just mentioned earlier that such instigation was because he indicated that his case that is now currently in court is treated unfairly. That's why I'm saying it's related.
That's the allegation that was made.
Yes.
Not against a state witness.
Not against the state witness.
Now, can I then get on with the allegations you made in regard to the Ngoma matter, as I want to call it? Can I ask you to please look at the Ngoma file, please? Lord, that's Exhibit Y. Now, I just want to look at page 1 of
Just
that
hold on.
file. Oh,
The Namgoma file. Yes.
so I've got to be, and just so that you don't, so that you understand the roadmap I have made in respect of this, I'm just going to refer you to a few documents. Now I ask you to look at the first document, which is Y1. You see on the left-hand side, it says document ID, and it gives a number. You see that? On
Yes, I
the
see
top
that.
left-hand side.
Yes, I see it.
On the right-hand side, it says NAM 01250.
Yes, I see.
And then right at the bottom on the left-hand side, it says custodian Johannes Stephenson.
That's correct.
Right. And you'll see that that document is dated the 28th of February 2012.
That's correct.
Right. Now I want you to next look at the next document, please. That document also has an ID number, but that ID number is different from the ID number on document 1. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then on the right-hand side, it has this, a different number as well in regard to the citation, NAM.
Yes.
And then again at the bottom, it's Mr. Stephenson is the custodian. That's a 3-page document. Now I want you to turn to the next document. This is an email. Oh, sorry. Can I just go back to the second document? That is dated July 28, 2013. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The first document was dated February 2012.
That's correct.
Right. Then, if you look at the document at page 5, this is the email from, or supposedly from Mr. Shangala, and it has identification numbers, if I can call them that, for the documents. For the document. You see that?
Yes, I see.
Those same 3. And then this is dated September 19th, 2013. The email itself.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, if you turn to page 7, there's an email again, and that email is dated, it doesn't seem to have any identification numbers as the previous ones have, but this document is dated November 26th, 2013. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, can I ask you, who compiled this file?
It was compiled by the prosecution.
With your assistance?
No.
See, I'm going to suggest to you, and I suggest to you, and I'm not going to question you, I'm going to suggest to you that just given the fact that the document starts in February 2012, the next one is July 2013, and then the next one is September 2013, and then November 2013. There must have been many, many documents in the files you have that are not contained in what I'm going to call the Namgoma files. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because you are the custodian of all the files that have been collated, or all the documents that have been collated in regard to the Nongoma investigation. Is that correct?
That's correct, but the prosecution have also the same files.
Yes, no. But I'm only saying this because that's a question I can ask you. I can say to you, but in between, when there's a lapse of 14, 15 months between the first document and the second document, there must be more documents in the Nongoma comprehensive file.
Yes, you are just correct.
Yes. Now, we've been through this, that in regard to certainly the Nongoma matter, Mr. Stefansson is the main witness. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Now, I just want to ask you, when you gave evidence on Tuesday, the 1st of February, my learned friend was asking you, because one of the issues was the role of the police in these matters. My learned friend was asking you about the role of the police. And I just want you to recall, you won't have it in front of you, so you must go back to your memory. I made notes. So one of the questions he asked you was, who took the witness, the statement of the main witness? Can you recall that you asked that?
Yes, I can recall.
And what was can you recall your answer?
The first statement. The first statement, I know it was taken by Inspector Seron, Chief Inspector Seron.
Okay. That was your answer, right?
Yes.
Where's his statement? Where is Mr. Seron's statement from Mr. Stefansson?
Come again?
So let's just so that we are not at cross purposes.
No, we are not there.
Okay. So you gave evidence on the 1st of February that Mr. Seron took the statement from Mr. Stefansson.
Yes.
Where is that statement?
Should be on the case file.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Because, you see, you might remember, I told you what the Icelandic people say. They say there are two statements from him. So on your version now, and both of them are from Berlin, and we've been through that. On your version, there is a third statement.
No, there's no third statement that I'm aware of.
So are you saying Mr. Seron went to Berlin to get the statement?
I know there was a statement that he took. That was before I took over this investigation.
Sorry, you say you know And when I asked you, you said it's in the case file.
Yes.
Let me just tell you what Mr. Sarant says about the statement. Can I ask you to please look at Mr. Shangala's affidavit now? And if you look at page 113 of that bundle, which is Annexure SETS 8,
Page
113. Now, Mr. Kanyangela, I just want to say that this statement of Mr. Saron is contained in your, is an annexure to your affidavit in the restraint application. Is that correct? It's in the court, sorry?
It is correct.
Okay. So can I just ask you now to look at paragraph 3. He says, I'm authorized in terms of section 83 of POCA to investigate offenses in terms of POCA. That authority is a matter of dispute. It'll come up at some time. But let me go to paragraph 4. He says, during August 2018, I received a phone call from the Financial Intelligence Center informing me that they have a meeting with an informer that wishes to divulge information containing to corrupt practice in relation to the awarding of fish quotas. 5. The FIC informed me that the informer, Mr. Johannes Stefansson, will meet with them on the 22nd of August 2018 and invited me to the meeting. Then he says, at the meeting, Mr. Stefansson disclosed information implicating certain ministers of government of Namibia in the corrupt awarding of fishing quotas. Then at paragraph 7 he says, based on the information received, I contacted the Anti-Corruption Commission to report the matter. Now surely if Mr. Saron had taken a statement, he would mention it.
I don't know why he did not mention it.
But you have a statement in your file, according to you.
The statement of Stephenson.
Yes.
That he took.
That Mr. Saron took.
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Will you be able to produce it tomorrow?
I can produce it.
Remember whom we are asking about now, huh? Mr. Saron taking a statement from Mr. Stephenson.
Yes.
See, I just find it quite amazing. And I haven't seen the statement, but I'm just putting to you a likely problem that arises. One would expect that somebody who's authorized on his version in terms of POCA to take a statement, that he would say, based on that authority, I took the statement.
That is a statement, and I cannot explain as to why he did not put it in the statement.
And in fairness to you, Mr. Kanyangela, I do not expect you to do that. But I'm just pointing this out to you. And I also point out that the Icelandic people in that affidavit that parts of which I read to you, do not mention a further statement except those two taken in below.
The statement that Mr. Seront took he took it, I think he went out of the country. And I cannot now confirm as to where the statement was obtained, whether it was in Namibia or it was outside the country. But I know he was at one time out of the country.
You remember the evidence, because I don't want there to be a dispute about it when you produce the statement, that Mr. Stephenson made a statement to Mr. Saron. That's your evidence. Or are you retracting that?
I'm not retracting it. I know Mr. Saron took his statement, and there was a second statement that was obtained, taken at the embassy.
Okay. Now, the Icelandic people have seen two statements, both taken at the Namibian embassy in Berlin. They've seen both. They say it was taken on the same day. But you say one of those statements was taken by Mr. Saron.
Yes, I know one was taken by Chief Saron.
No. Sorry, what I'm trying to say is that's not what I'm asking, what you know. I'm saying on your version, you saw a statement that Mr. Stephenson made to Mr. Saron, whether here in Namibia or elsewhere, in Berlin or wherever.
Yes, I saw the statement.
You saw the statement,
Yes.
which says that the statement is made or signed by Mr. Saron,
That's correct.
as it having been made by Mr. Stephenson.
That's correct.
You know, if Mr. Saron is a commissioner of oaths,
Yes, he's a commissioner of oath.
and you say he took that statement in his capacity as commissioner of oaths, and therefore it's an affidavit.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I've put to you the unlikelihood, but that's another matter. When you bring the statement, I'll ask for leave to deal with that matter. Now, let's just get back to the file, the relating to Ngoma. When one looks at the file as a whole, I would be correct in saying that a number of documents there are governmental documents, internal Namibian government documents, or documents exchanged between the Namibian government and the Angolan government.
This first document that we just referred to, these are documents, this emails is those documents that we received from the Office of the District Prosecutor of Iceland. And there is not really documents that is being shared between the Namibian government and the Angolan government.
Is that your answer to my question, Mr. Kanyangela?
Yes.
Can I tell you what my question was, and you may want to change your mind? I said when you look at the Ngoma file, a number of documents are official government documents. I said a number, I didn't say all.
That's correct. They are official documents.
No. Just listen to the question and answer the question, please. I say a number of documents, a large number of documents, are documents which are official documents concerning the government of Namibia or the government of Namibia and the government of Angola.
Not really.
No. Okay. Anyway, the file is here. I don't want to debate this matter with you, Mr. Kanyangela. But
Yes.
I'm going to suggest to you that when one looks at these documents, I'm talking about the official government documents, what you see there is exactly what the type of documents that would be produced by government departments, or when or when foreign countries exchange official documents with each other.
Just correct what is in this file.
Yes. And I'm going to suggest to you that on the face of those documents, there is nothing that appears, I say on the face of the documents, that appears unusual.
To me, they appeared unusual.
Okay. Now, you received this file from Mr. Baker, or you received the documents from Mr. Baker, right? The investigations.
Not all of them.
Did he come to the same conclusion? That the documents appear, some of the documents appear unusual?
Yes.
Because I'm going to now make a second suggestion to you. What you did, Mr. Kanyangela, is simply adopt the approach that Mr. Becker had adopted, that there is something wrong in here.
There is something wrong. But it was not an adoption. I could also see that there is something wrong.
Yes. Okay. Now, can I ask you, some of these documents concern certainly Mr. Shangala and Mr. Issa.
Yes?
And remember, they are among the accused.
That's correct.
Did you at any stage, approach them and say, but look, man, we have these documents over here. Would you please explain them?
No, I did not approach them.
Now, firstly, whether you had the power to require them to answer or not is for the moment irrelevant. That you didn't do. You didn't approach them at all.
Yes, I did not approach them.
Why?
It was on my discretion not to approach them.
Like it was Mr. Becker's discretion not to approach them.
I don't know why he did not approach them.
But you know he did not approach
I
them.
cannot answer on his behalf.
Now, I've raised this with you before. Section 21(4) empowers you to require them to answer questions. You didn't use your powers in terms of 21(4).
Yes, because it's not a must. It's an optional.
So is your answer yes?
I did not approach them.
See, Mr. Kanyangela, there is something odd about your entire approach. And that is why you were probably not the most appropriate witness to oppose bail. And I'm going to tell you why. I put to you that this is what Mr. Shangala says is the state of his health. I don't know. I'm not required to do. I mean, and that, the way I'm pointing out is the way it comes across from you. Now you are asked, but look, forget his state of health. Here's an accusation you make against a former minister. You accuse him of a whole series of things, of conspiracies and everything. But you don't even go up to him, forget whether you had the power or not, and ask. That is your position, isn't it?
I did not ask him. I did not approach him.
And despite the fact that you had the power in terms of 21.4, you didn't use the power.
No, I did not.
Now, can I just say this to you? Namibia is a developing country. Is that right?
Yes.
And therefore, state resources are limited.
Yes, they are limited.
Now you have the power to short-circuit major investigations, but you don't use it.
No, I did not use it.
You wasted Namibian resources, I'm going to suggest to you,
I don't know in which way I have wasted it.
because we wouldn't have had all this long trial in respect of bail, certainly, if you had used your powers and if you had acted as a reasonable holder of that power.
I don't think that could change anything.
You don't think what?
It could change even if I approach him.
If you approached him.
Even if I approach him to give an explanation on the allegations.
No, but Mr. Kanyangela, can I just say to you, ordinarily, a person can't be obliged to answer questions.
That's correct?
Because of the difficulties with investigating corruption, Parliament ensured that the ACC has the power to ask these questions, but to respect the fair trial right says they may not be used in criminal trials.
Yes.
But you didn't use that power.
I did not.
So you don't know what his version is.
I don't know what his version is.
And I'm just saying to you, Mr. Mr. Kanyangela, that had you used your powers, you may well have come to a different decision.
Yes, I use it in some instances.
Yes, and that's the point, really. You're aware that Namibia says, the Namibian constitution says everybody's equal.
That's correct.
All accused persons are equal.
That's correct.
But you selected whom to use those powers against.
Yes. As I say, it's not a must.
And just to tell you, so that I don't need to come back to it, just to tell you how selective you were in the utilization of those powers. Just want to refer you to two statements, and I'm not saying you took them. You remember you were asked to give evidence in regard to an affidavit made by Mr. Kamano. And that affidavit is part of the record of these proceedings, my lord. It's Z23, Exhibit Z23. You remember?
Yes, I remember.
Now, in paragraph 8 of his affidavit, Mr. Kamano says, all the information disclosed in this affidavit and the documentation annexed hereto is provided on the understanding that Novamam, that's his company, and myself are legally obliged to provide the information in terms of the Act. That's a correct proposition of the law, is that right?
That's correct.
Right. Then he goes on at paragraph 9. It says, all the information disclosed in this affidavit and the document annexed hereto is provided on the further understanding that Novamam and myself provide such information in terms of Section 52 of the Act, and that this affidavit may not be used against Nova Nam, any of its subsidiaries, or any of its employees, including myself, in any action or proceedings of a disciplinary, civil, or criminal nature. That's the statement. I mean, that's part of his affidavit. That's correct?
Yes.
That affidavit was taken by Mr. Olivier on the 9th of December 2020. It's here. You can accept it. I won't mislead you, Mr. Kanyangela.
Yes, it's correct.
Then there is a statement, and my learned friend, Mr. Ueitele, has pointed out that we don't know what this document is. But, Lord, may I just want your Lordship's records to be in order, my Lord. When this document was handed up on the previous occasion we were here, my Lord, the note I have is that it had been handed in the respect of these proceedings at a time when I was not part of the proceedings. So I don't know what the exhibit number is.
Which document is that?
That's the statement of Mr. Perez.
Jose Luis Perez.
Yes, Jose Luis Fernandez Perez.
The statement itself, I don't think it's an exhibit before court. The statement itself is not an exhibit, as far as I recall. Not a statement.
Oh, I apologize, my Lord. As I said, I just made an inscription. My learned friend may well be right.
But the annexures there too.
Yes, it seems to be an
The
annexure
annexures were admitted into evidence
yes,
as exhibits,
yes.
but the statement itself was not admitted into evidence as an exhibit.
Yes, and I understand, my Lord, as I understand it, my Lord, like all the disputed statements, including the statement of Mr. Kamano, it is on the basis that the admission is provisional until the matter is argued.
Yes.
And that's the basis on which I treat it, my Lord. And it's just a belts and braces approach on the basis that if it's not admitted, this is irrelevant. But if it is admitted, then your Lordship knows what our approach to the statement is. Now, in regard to Mr. Perez's statement, paragraph 5 says, the information and documentation as per this affidavit has been provided on the understanding that it will assist the ACC in its investigations referred to in paragraph 2 above. Furthermore, that by virtue of such assistance and in accordance with section 52(4) of the Anti-Corruption Act, no action or proceedings of a disciplinary, civil or criminal nature may be instituted or maintained against the person who signed, the company, directors, and so on. Now, that is the basis on which this statement was taken by the ACC. That correct?
That's correct.
Now, that's not a privilege you afforded to the accused in this matter.
It does depend on the circumstances and how the involvement of that person in the case.
But you won't know the involvement unless you ask him.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm saying to you, Mr. Kanyangela, that when one looks at the documents in this Fishrot file, you have correspondence from over a long period where things have taken place that are not before His Lordship. and you have documents which are put in. We don't know on what basis they were selected because you didn't select the documents. And what you want, well, not you, but what is sought is that based on a selection of correspondence and documents, His Lordship must find there's a strong case in regard of Nangoma. That I'm putting to you is the essence of the evidence you've tried to lead on this issue. You want to respond to that?
It can be broken down by, it's a lengthy statement. I'm not sure if he got all of it. Perhaps it can be broken down for him so that he can answer appropriately.
It's a fair request.
My Lord, I accept that because Your Lordship has said that. I make this point, my Lord, that the witness has been totally uncooperative, and therefore, in an effort to save time, I've just put it because his attitude has always been, well, I don't agree or I agree. But I accept that. I'm going to put this proposition to you, Mr. Kanyangela. I've indicated to you that as regards the correspondence that's contained in the Fishrot file, given the huge gaps, it is...
I do not mean to interrupt, but is it the Fishrot file that has not been dealt with, or is it the Nangoma file?
Oh, I beg your pardon. It's a Nangoma file. Sorry. So, as regards the Nangoma file, I'm going to put this to you, that the documents, to the extent that they refer to correspondence, are spread over a long period, and we don't know if all the correspondence is there. As I understood it, you agreed that some parts of the correspondence are not there. Can we accept that?
Yes, not in this file.
Yes. Yeah, we're only talking about this file.
Okay.
In regard to the governmental documents, I take it the same has happened, that there were many more documents, but these that are contained in the Nangoma file are a selection of the documents contained in your comprehensive file in regard to Nangoma.
That's correct.
I'm going to suggest that that is an unfair approach to presenting evidence before His Lordship, because if you want to understand what a particular piece of correspondence means, everybody concerned with the law knows that when you're interpreting, you adopt a contextual approach. In other words, you look at the entire background, you look at what followed, and so on. So that's the suggestion I'm making to you, that the approach that has been adopted in regard to purporting to have a strong case is unfair.
I really don't agree that it is unfair, because the documents that had been placed in this file is the documents that are related to what had been being investigated in the Nangoma file, which is the allocation of the quotas. Hence, I will not say it was unfair. All the documents that had been placed in this file are related to the allocation of the quotas, which we allege that it was done through corrupt practices. So I can say they were fairly selected to be placed on this file.
But you didn't select them.
Yes, I did not select them.
You don't even know how they were selected. You said to me.
Yes, I don't know how they were
So I
selected.
don't know how you can say they were fairly selected, Mr.
Because they are related to what we are just
Yes.
arguing.
I'm going to suggest something else to you, Mr. Kanyagera. Ordinarily in a bail application, evidence is not presented. What somebody like you as the investigating officer does is to paint a picture and to isolate what witnesses are likely to say, what is the big case against the persons. What has happened here is a selection of documents consisting of contracts, governmental contracts, exchanges has been put up to paint a particular predetermined picture.
That is not a matter of painting.
Sorry, that's what?
It's not a matter of painting.
Sketching.
I don't know how we'll call it, but
All right, now let's just go to the Fishrot matter. And there you have a thick file, is that correct?
that's correct.
Now, one of the issues that is central to the Fishrot matter is you say that, or two of the issues, Mr. James Hatukulipi and Mr. Pius Imwatelelo, Mr. James Hatukulipi and Mr. Ntupunya were irregularly appointed to the respective positions they occupy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, let me ask you this. Was that the position that was adopted also by Mr. Becker?
I don't know whether he was having any position that he adopted.
When you received the file from him, you say that you didn't detect that that was his position?
The allegation was that, but I don't know whether that was also the position he took.
But that's the allegation that was contained in the file.
That's correct.
Yes. Now, as I understand it, you say that Mr. Hatukulipi could not be appointed on account of Section 15.5 of the relevant legislation. Is that correct? That was your evidence.
If it was my evidence, then I will still stick to that evidence.
So I just want to, so that you accept that in regard to the appointment of the chairperson, the relevant legislation is the State-Owned Enterprises Governance Act.
I will not accept that.
You say it's
He was
not.
still supposed to be appointed in terms of the Fiscal Act.
Oh, so you say the the State-Owned Enterprises Governance Act doesn't apply.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. I'm just going to suggest to you that that is a matter of law. Now, I also understood you to say that the CEO of Fishrot could not be appointed because the post had not been advertised in terms of Section 28(6) of the Fiscal Act. Now, I may have mistaken your evidence, but just tell His Lordship again, why do you say that the CEO was irregularly appointed?
Why I say that he was irregularly appointed? Is because he was appointed for a period which was not as per the approval of the Public Service Commission.
Okay. Can I just ask, and again, my notes reflect that you said it was not advertised in terms of 28(6) of the Fiscal Act. Did I take that position wrong?
I cannot recall of having quoted a section, but I do have mentioned that yes, the position was not advertised.
No. You see, His Lordship, when you dealt with these matters, said, tell us what the law is. So are you saying the Fiscal Act required that this position be advertised?
I cannot recall of justifying that. But I did mention that yes, the position was not advertised. But I cannot recall of having quoting a section.
Okay, because I want to say to you that I've looked carefully at the Fiscal Act, and nothing here says anything about the appointment of the CEO. If anything, Section 6(5), when dealing with the position of the Chief Executive Officer, says the board may from time to time, on such conditions as it may determine, appoint one of its members or any other person who is not a member of the board as CEO of the corporation. Then it says the CEO shall occupy himself or herself full-time in the affairs of Fiscal, and then the board may from time to time delegate to the CEO such powers as it may deem fit. But nothing here in the Fiscal Act says the position must be advertised.
Yes, there's nothing like that.
So where do you get that from then?
I got it, like I said in my testimony area, that is a procedure of government or public institutions that if a person is to be appointed into a critical position, just like the CEO of the state-owned enterprise, the position have to be advertised.
And on your version, there is some statutory provision that sets out this requirement.
That is a practice in the public institutions.
Now, I'm asking a different question. Is that a statutory provision?
It can be a statutory provision in terms of the Public Service Act.
So you say now it can be,
Yes.
but you're not certain.
I'm not 100% sure.
Ask you this. Did you go to a lawyer and say, look, we have a major investigation. One of the issues is the appointment of the CEO of Fiscal. Does it require or does it not require the position to be advertised in law?
No, I did not approach a lawyer.
So, did you now, the board of Fiscal, as I understood it, appointed the CEO, right?
Yes, they,
Mr. Kanyangela, it can just be a yes or no. As I understand the position, the board appointed the CEO.
just correct.
Now, did you then go to the board and say, look, man, why didn't you follow the correct procedure as far as the appointment of the CEO goes?
The person who appointed the CEO or who entered into a contract with the CEO is the co-accused Mr. Hatrikulipi, and other board of directors. They give their statements that indicates that the appointment was not done as per the provision of the Fiscal Act, since they were supposed to appoint the chief executive officer among their numbers, among their groups.
But I've just read to you what the Fiscal Act says. Did you not read the Fiscal Act?
I read it.
So that they quote you something wrong, you just accept it.
I read the Fiscal Act. In the time the CEO was appointed, he was supposed to be appointed in terms of the Fiscal Act.
Anyway, that's a matter of, but you know, it just tells the world about the state of how you did this investigation. Let me just raise a slightly different issue with you. Many of the documents that are included in the fiscal file now, just in the fiscal file, are in fact contracts between different parties.
Yes?
Did you go, and some of them involve the accused?
Yes?
Did you go to the accused and say, look, allegations are made that this is unlawful for whatever reason? Did you ask them for their version?
Are you... Maybe, let me understand. Are you referring to the accused as all of them, or as to the three accused that you are representing?
Does it make a difference?
Yes.
All right, so I don't want to jeopardize the position of any of the other accused. Did you go through to the first, second, and third applicants in this matter?
Just because you refer to the agreements
Yes.
that have been entered into.
Did you go to them to ask them about the agreements?
Accused 1 to 3.
Not accused 1 to 3, applicants 1
Applicant
to
1 to 3.
Yes.
No, I did not go to them.
Again, you have such massive powers. You selectively employ the use of those powers. Does that, in your mind, suggest a fair investigation?
To me, it was a fair investigation.
Now, one of the other matters in the Fiscal file are different parts of the Deloitte report. Am I correct about that? I'm waiting for an answer, Mr. Kaningela.
I never knew that you ask a question.
I said among the documents in the fiscal file are reports or parts of the report compiled by Deloitte.
Yes, you are just correct.
Now, as I understand it, Deloitte was appointed as a special investigator in terms of Section 14 of the Anti-Corruption Act.
That's correct.
Now, I just want to place on record that the position of applicants 1, 2, and 3, and whatever the position is in respect of others, is that the Deloitte report is not something they ever referred to and it can't be used against them. But on the basis that fairness would demand that evidence of that nature is admissible in the bail application, I'm going to put these propositions to you. In paragraph 1.2 of their report, Deloitte says, 1.1, the Anti-Corruption Commission conducted an investigation into alleged corrupt practices in the Namibian fishing industry during the period 2012 to 2019. Is that correct?
As far as I know, the investigation started during 2019.
Okay. So can we take it that that part of the report is wrong? From your point of view?
I cannot say it is wrong because I don't know the reason they put up that period.
You see, it's not the reason, it's the fact. They say that the ACC investigated the fishing industry during the period 2012 to 2019. Now that's either right or wrong, because you say the investigation was started in 2019.
The investigation started 2019.
Okay.
But the period they put up, it could be emanating from the documents that we collected during the period of the investigation.
Right. Then it says, paragraph 1.2, this report serves to record the findings of Deloitte's review of the evidence collated by the ACC during the course of its investigations into the above-mentioned allegations.
Yes.
Then in paragraph 1.9 they say, our work does not constitute a statutory audit under the IFRS or the ISA. You're aware of that?
I'm aware of that, but really I don't understand its meaning.
Yes. But you commissioned them. I say you, the ACC.
The ACC appointed them.
Then at paragraph 1.10, they say, our work during this engagement has been based on the review and analysis of the documentation and other records and data made available to us by the ACC obtained in terms of provisions of the Anti-Corruption Act.
Yes.
They also say, unless otherwise indicated, such information was not independently verified or audited.
Yes.
You understand all those qualifications, that they depended on your integrity effectively.
Yes, they depend on the information, on the documents that we provide to them.
And your integrity, that you will do a proper investigation.
Yes, correct.
Then at paragraph 1.12, they say, in the circumstances where we could not find the relevant corroboration for evidence, you should not rely on our work and our report as being comprehensive, as we may not have become aware of all facts or information that you may regard as relevant. So that's another qualification they put.
Okay, that is their qualification.
You don't accept it now.
As I said, some of those things I really don't understand what they are meaning.
In paragraph 1.16, they say, the report is based on the facts established from documents provided or information or devices containing data obtained from or via the ACC. Information or documentation or data on devices not received or reviewed at the time of compiling this report could not be incorporated into the report.
Yes, that is our report.
And we also assume that the documents and or information and or devices containing the data we obtained from or via the ACC on which we based our findings were obtained by the ACC in terms of its investigative powers provided for in Chapter 3 of the Anti-Corruption Act, and the evidence derived from these sources will be admissible in any criminal or ensuing legal proceedings.
Yes.
Then paragraph 1.19 says, the persons of interest referred to in this report were all arrested and charged prior to and since our appointment in May 2020.
Yes.
They say, we therefore did not have the opportunity to obtain the versions of all the persons of interest to take into consideration before making our findings.
Yes.
And I'm going to suggest to you what they are saying is, it would have been fair if we had their versions.
They were appointed as a special investigators, and they were also having investigating power to approach those people.
Also, they too acted unfairly.
I cannot say they did unfairly.
Did you tell them not to talk to the accused?
No.
So then they say, as there was no consultation with the persons of interest in the matters, this report may not reflect full information of all relevant documentation and transactions or the identified documentation and transactions reported on. The information used for purposes of this report has been obtained from documents from the ACC.
Yes.
In paragraph 1.21, our review was dependent on the completeness and integrity of the documentation and other evidence that we received from or via the ACC, and subsequently reviewed.
Yes,
See, they
correct.
also use the word integrity and completeness.
Yes.
And I've suggested to you that completeness and integrity required a fair process which involved getting the versions of the accused persons. What do you say to that?
On that one, I don't think I have any comment on that one.
Now, I just want to finally end my cross-examination by giving you my instructions in relation to some of the allegations you made against some of the three applicants I represent. Now, one of the matters you referred to with the so-called Dubai searches by Mr. Shangala. You remember that?
Yes, I remember.
Now, you didn't conduct that research, that report, did you?
No, I did not.
Now, if you look at the report, and I'm just looking at the report, it all took place over a reasonably small period of time, about half an hour or so, where there were searches being made in regard to certain matters concerning Dubai. Is that correct? It's there in the report, so you needn't make a concession that that is not necessary.
Yes, it's correct.
Now, when did you become aware that Mr. Shangala was dealing with this matter, was making those inquiries?
I came to be aware after his device was analyzed.
When was that?
I know it was last year, but I don't know the exact date.
Yes. Now, did you go to Mr. Shangala and say, look, a report has been compiled. This is what we found. What is this about?
I just did not go and approach him.
Now, had you approached him, he would have told you that among the matters that were contained in the information given during the various proceedings and in the affidavits was that there were certain dealings that had taken place in Dubai. And as a lawyer, he was checking various aspects relating to the law in Dubai in relation to South Africa, in relation to Namibia, and what information Namibia would be able to get from there. You're not in a position to dispute that, are you?
I'm not in position to dispute whether he was doing any research regarding to the law.
Okay. Now, in regard to Mr. Sorry, my lord, I just need to find a document that. Now, with regard to Mr. Hatukulipi, that's James Hatukulipi, one of the issues you raise is that he has South African citizenship or South African residence. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, if you look at the ID document, have you got it in front of you?
Yes.
Now, that document says, under his ID number, that he's a non-South African citizen. Are you aware of that?
Yes, that is what it is saying.
You don't believe it?
He's a non-South African citizen.
Yes.
But he can. He's having a document or the ID book that can let him reside in South Africa.
This document
Yes.
only has pages of the passport. It doesn't have pages of the South African identity number.
Yes. Look, there was a smaller version of that given to everybody, I think on the first or second day. It is, my lord, it is this one.
Your Lordship, I remember we submitted it as an exhibit, both of them. It should be a two-page document,
Yeah.
as it is the court, Your Lordship.
I understand it's Z45.
Yeah.
Okay. Then can I ask you to please look at the document which says that he has residence in the UAE. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that.
All right, and you read that into the record that this was issued in Saja, and it gives Mr. Hatukulipi's name, and he's described as an investor.
That's correct.
Right. The one that you didn't read, though, and I want to read into the record, is the following. Right at the bottom of that, it says, resident permit becomes invalid if bearer resides out of the UAE for more than 6 months. You see that right at the bottom?
Yes, I can see it.
You didn't point that out to His Lordship when you read what was in this document, did you?
No, I did not point it out.
All right, and this document was issued on the 16th of June 2019.
Yes.
And we are now in 2022.
Yes.
You know what that means?
It might mean that it become now invalid.
Could it mean anything else?
There's no anything that mean. I only see that it will expire during June this year.
I beg your pardon, it'll expire when?
15 June this year.
But it says if he's out of the country for more than 6 months, he's been in jail for two years and 3 months.
Yes, I don't know whether that's below.
Sorry, just say that again, please.
I said this statement or this sentence below the page. To me, it is not really clear with regarding to the absence of for the period of more than 6 months, if it is continuously or it's only unfortunate that yes, he was arrested and he could not go back. The permit might still be valid or invalid. It depends to the circumstances or the explanation which he will give to the authority of UAE if you have to go back.
So you say he can still go back on the basis of this document, notwithstanding that it says if you're out of the country for more than 6 months, it expires. That's your version.
That is my version, yeah.
Mr. Kanyangela, I've got to say to you, and I've got to say this with the greatest respect. This file that I'm showing to you now is black. This document that I'm showing to you now is white.
Yes.
There is a difference between black and white, and an obvious difference. And I'm saying to you that what is contained in that document, which I'm now going to suggest to you, you deliberately did not read on the previous occasion, is that Mr. Hatukulipi's residence in the UAE is over.
I'm not agree to that to say that it is over because that document is still valid. Okay. After the expiry date.
I just want to finally, in regard to Mr. Hatukulipi, you said that he attempted to bribe the ACC and that somebody had confessed to that and was in custody. You remember that's your evidence the last time?
That's correct.
Did you raise this issue with Mr. Hatukulipi and say, look, man, you charged with all these serious offenses, but this too is what you are doing while you're in jail?
I did not approach him because this was a different case that was being investigated, which is also still in court. So the investigators who were dealing with that case, they might have approached him, or they might not have approached him to give his explanation.
Yes. But if you were doing it, you wouldn't have asked for his explanation because that is your practice.
I did not ask for his explanation.
No, I'm asking a different question. I'm saying if you were investigating, you would not have asked.
It depends.
Well, show us one time when you asked any of the three applicants I represent anything.
I did not ask them anything.
Yes. Now, what he says about that is the fact that this happened, and this is, sorry, not what he says, I'm going to put this to you. The fact that he tried to bribe somebody in an unrelated matter is not a basis to refuse him bail, because on your version too, it's an unrelated matter. What do you say to that?
I will not say.
Your Lordship, I don't recall this witness saying that it's an unrelated matter where he tried to bribe someone. Now, insofar as Mr. Tukilipi is concerned, he did not testify to that effect. He did mention that earlier on. I think it was with Mr. Shangala with regard to the letter that was written, but not Mr. Tukilipi.
Can I just ask you this? The person who is in custody confessed to you.
Not to me.
What? To whoever? To the ACC?
That person he plead guilty to that on that case, and he was sentenced.
Yes. And he implicated Mr. Hatukulipi.
That's correct.
And here's a man who pleads guilty, says, Mr. X asked me to do this, and you believe him without going to Mr. X.
Yes, I do believe him.
This is like the Icelandic people talk about Mr. Stephenson, a criminal.
I don't want to say. I believe what this person said.
But he is a criminal because he's been convicted, unless you say he's not convicted.
Doesn't matter whether he's a criminal.
Just to be clear, are you referring to Mr. Stephenson?
Oh, no, sorry, my lord.
Or to...
The person who made the allegation against Mr. Hatukulipi.
Oh, okay. Does he have a name?
We've not been given a name. I certainly have not seen it.
I thought in the testimony in chief, a name was given.
Yes.
Even the trial case number, if my memory serves me well.
Yes.
Okay, just to avoid confusion, if we can refer
Yes.
to, yeah. Because all along I thought you were referring to
I
Stephenson.
understand perfectly.
Yeah.
So let me just say that it is quite surprising that you would want to oppose bail on the strength of what you are told by an accomplice who has pleaded guilty and is in jail, when the accusation is made against a person who pleads his innocence and is asking for bail.
The accused person who was sentenced, I have to believe him, as he's alleging, because what he was asking to be provided to him, it was documents that were in possession of the Anti-Corruption Commission that were seized during the arrest of Mr. James Hatukulipi. So there's no any doubt that He was sent by him to get such documentation.
Just like there is no doubt in your mind that all the accused are guilty of all the offenses and perhaps more.
I'm not saying they are guilty. That can still be proven.
So anyway, Mr. Hatukulipi denies having any connection with the person.
Criminals always denied. There's no way he can say that, yes, it was me who sent the person.
And criminals who are convicted often implicate others. Lord, I am going to be exactly 5 minutes more, the witness permitting, my Lord. I just want to ask you, you said that you had read Mr. Shangala's affidavit.
That's correct.
You haven't read the affidavits of the other persons I represent, namely Mr. Hatukulipi and Mr. Imwatulelo.
Supporting affidavit.
Yes.
What?
Because they've all applied for bail via affidavits. Were you not served with those affidavits?
The supporting short affidavit, yes. They were attached to Shangala's statement.
No. They made separate affidavits. You've not seen them.
If there was some separate affidavit, then...
You've not seen them. Can I just, to cut short the matter short, because I think I know what your answer is going to be. This is what, in his affidavit, Mr. James Hatukulipi says at paragraph 71, and it's at page 35 of his affidavit, my Lord. He says, I suffer from hereditary hypertension and have been on medication which requires being taken daily and a balanced diet which is not available at the Windhoek Correctional Facility. Now, were you aware that he suffers from hypertension?
I'm not aware.
Okay. And you didn't even bother to read these affidavits?
It was not provided to me.
Well, it was provided to the prosecutors, so don't put it at our doorstep, Mr. Kanyangela. At paragraph 72, he says, I have 3 surviving siblings, one in the United Kingdom, another resident in Europe, and in Windhoek, and another in Otjiwarongo. Are you aware of that?
That affidavit.
Okay, but are you in a position to dispute any of this?
No, I'm not disputing that.
Yes.
I don't know who is his family.
Sorry?
I don't know his family, except the one who is alleged to be the cousin now. And Tanson, who is a cousin.
Mr. Soni?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me just quickly establish. Mr. Kanyangela,
Yes, my lord.
is it your testimony that you have not seen the affidavit of Mr. James Nependa Hatuikulipi in support of the application for bail in this case?
My lord, the statement I read, it was only for Mr. Shangala.
No, what I'm saying,
That one I did not read.
did you hear the question? Listen,
Yes, my lord,
Is
I
it
was
your-
not
is it-
provided with such a statement.
not a state, is it your testimony that you have not seen the affidavit, not seen nor read the affidavit of Mr. James Nependa Hatuikulipi in support of the application for bail in this case?
No, I did not.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
No,
All right.
not my lord.
What I'm going to ask, I'll ask it to be given to you for you to read it, and we stand it down to tomorrow morning.
Yes, my Lord, please.
The one is the affidavit of Mr. James Nependa Hatuikulipi and Mr.
Imwatule. Tulelo, sorry.
Is there an additional file?
We'll make it available for you.
You have Mr. Ueitele?
We just have our own files, Your Lordship.
Okay, but the affidavits, you see, the way I understand it, they were served on the state.
Yes, Your Lordship.
So that's the state witness. It's the state's obligation to share that affidavit with him, not the applicants.
As you please the court, Your
Yeah,
Lordship.
it's the state's obligation to share that affidavit with the state witness. It's not the applicants. He can't serve on the witness. He serves on the state.
Yes, Your Lordship. We just don't want accusations if he goes to our office that we've been discussing things. He's still under cross-examination at the moment.
Okay.
I don't know if...
So what I'll ask you, if you can please hand over the file to my researcher. My researcher will make sure that Mr. Kanyangela gets a copy of the affidavit.
As you please the court, Your
I
Lordship.
don't think it's fair for him to answer questions on something he hasn't read and he hasn't seen.
As you please the court.
Yes.
As my lord, please.
So I think then it will be opportune. We take a...
As my lord.
Unfortunately, I wanted to start early tomorrow, but I have my case management, so we'll start at 10.
As my lord, please.
All right. God will. I was alerted to difficulties of bringing the applicants to court. Are those difficulties still being experienced? Mr. Lutubeti?
As far as we're concerned, we also informed the morning that there are difficulties. I think they are still in existence. We've not been informed otherwise, Your Lordship.
Where is the commanding officer? I didn't understand what the difficulties of bringing the applicants to court is. If you just can come forth. Yeah.
We used to face some challenges when we go to the correctional facility. Because when the judge is safe, and we have to book them out. So like today, they are supposed to start here at 10. However, the time that they just reached the reception, it was 10 minutes to 10. And we have to drive all the way coming to
Who's the officer?
I don't know, because we are not allowed to go inside the correctional facility. We should just wait, because we just used to talk to the officers at the reception so that they can be called. And then we hear, no, they go for bathing, they do what, then we just used to...
Mr. Lutubeti, is there a way, just hold on. Is there a way where we can arrange that the applicants are ready for pickup at 9:30? Maybe who's in charge, the officer in charge of the correctional facility?
Yes.
We are just going to convey the message to them.
I think he must be here for him. Yeah. Let the officer in charge of the correction, so that he hears it from the court and he knows what to do. Because you may convey a different message, and when it gets there, it's totally different from what I said. Yeah. If the officer in charge can be here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, so that we just sort out this, and then we will release him.
But now the problem is that I don't know who will convey that message to you, because it has to come from my authority.
Okay.
So we'll make arrangements. It's fine, Your Lordship.
Yes.
We'll make arrangements.
All right. Right, thank you. Mr. Kanyangela, the normal warnings that you are under.
Yes, my lord.
And the evidence that came out today actually makes it even difficult for me, because I don't know how to tell you not to speak to your wife.
Fortunately, she's not. This week she's out of town.
Yeah. So please, you may not discuss this matter with anybody.
Yes, my lord.
All right. Maybe you can just hang on for a few minutes so that my researcher can get a copy of the affidavit for you. Go to the rise.